Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels, and we're going to that horrible world known as the JRC. But before we get started, the usual disclaimers. Now, this is not so much of a rant about what's happening out in Tennessee. I've probably ranted enough on that at this point. This is going to be me prepping you before we get into the madness here. They're going to be talking about what they call loss of privileges. Loss of privileges is what someone like Dr. Matthew Israel said. Well, you're having behaviors. What does having behaviors mean in context of the JRC? It means any form of a disabled person acting within their neurology. You flap your hands, that's a behavior. You stand up for more than 3 seconds, that's a behavior. You refuse to remove your coat, that's a behavior. You speak out in your own defense without permission to speak, that's a behavior. You dare complain about giving liver-powered mash for eating because of a so-called behavior, that's another behavior. If your body tenses while being shot up with electricity, somehow, uncomprehendingly, that's a behavior. Okay? Yeah. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. Now, remember how he has stated earlier in this particular mass of just bullcrap that we've been reading through, how he kept saying that the GED is the answer. The GED keeps these kids from being isolated and warehoused. You remember that, right? Good. Keep that in the back of your head while we go through the next paragraph here. And now let's go ahead and get to the disclaimers. In the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals in regards to their so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much they have threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, as always, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read that article and share it on all your social media. You're also going to find their NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC actually has the courage of their convictions, which I highly doubt. We also have linked in there the Ozark's first article in regards to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation. This is a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that has and pending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the evidence gathered by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another, a doctor still on the premises with full access of the boys up on multiple, again, substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens to care about proven pedophiles who hide behind the cross. And you've got a governor that I don't even know what to tell you about my governor this week. I trolled him a little bit on Twitter this morning because he's going off on faith, and I had to remind them that, faith without works is dead. So, please send help. Share that article on all your social media. We got the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign as well, including Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masumba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, the templates, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. When we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of, gets clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please use your headphones. This channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is advised, all right? Okay, trigger warning. We are about to once again descend into the mad ravings of the lunatic mind known as Dr. Matthew Israel. You're going to hear gaslighting, victim blaming, abuse and torture apologencia, pseudoscience, lies, and more, all coming from a man with a massive ego and even larger God complex. So, as always, folks, prepare yourselves for the stupid. I was kept in a small room, isolated, one staff and me, for a year and a half. MDRI fraudulently takes the words out of a testimonial statement by a JRC student that was entirely favorable to JRC and in support of the GED skin shot procedure, and uses those words to deceptively create a statement that the student never made and that appears to be negative towards the JRC. Let me explain it to you like you're 5, JRC. If we take words that come out of an individual's mouth, whether or not that individual believes in your Jim Jones level Kool-Aid drinking bullshit or not, it doesn't become deceptive and false because they use that person's own words. You call it deceptive because the perception is on you, doctor. You know it sounds bad because it's bad. It doesn't take a whole lot of logic here to make this argument. The MDRI never stated anywhere, literally anywhere in that document, that that student was speaking against the JRC. Okay? Nor did they take it out of context. They presented the whole statement. What we do so often, doctor, like we've done on this channel, is we dissect these statements. On this channel, I present these statements in whole, intact as they are. Therefore, you cannot tell me or the MDRI that we're taking them out of context. We're not. We are taking what we know from our own expertise, picking apart these statements, and presenting them as bad because they're bad. It's not rocket science here. So please take your fake victim stuff and just put it somewhere unpleasant, all right? I'm trying to watch my language here. But for God's sake, allow me to play you the world's smallest violin, doctor. Okay? People who want to understand a situation will look at both sides of the debate. The fact that we can look at people who support your side and read these statements and still find things within them that sound unhinged, and we call them out, that's not being deceptive. Okay? If it sounds bad, it's because it is bad. All right? Let's move forward. Notice the false quotation asserts that the student was kept in a small room isolated with only one staff and me for a year and a half. Yet the original testimonial statement shows below reveals that the student never made such a statement. The student never stated that he was isolated, only that the room he was in with a staff member was isolated. Oh, so now we're mincing words. There's another person who did that. I believe her name was Amber Heard. You remember that, right? We all watched the trial. But they said the room was isolated, not that they were isolated. It's the same thing, moron. It's the same thing. If you're only in there with a staff member, you're not allowed to speak out. You're on loss of privileges, right? Right? Your own handbook, loss of privileges. Your room is isolated. You're in the room. If you are in an isolated room, by yourself with no one but a staff member. Do you know what that is, doctor? That means you're isolated. But that's not what they said, though. Seriously. Seriously. But you're lying. We're not lying, doctor. We're using common sense. We're using logic. If a student is in an isolated room, they're inside a room that they have stated is isolated, that obviously means that the person that is in an isolated room is isolated. This is not a big jump here. It's not a lie. It's not deceptive. It is not, in fact, different from what the person stated. If you want to argue over placement of words, I don't know, go argue in a college somewhere. But please don't insult my intelligence. He notes that he was kept in that room with a staff member in order to prevent himself from hurting people and trying to stab people. He also never states that he was in that condition in a small room isolated for a year and a half. He only states that after a year and a half he was approved for the GED skin shock treatment. Here we go again. Doctor. Seriously. All these things mean the same thing. But it's not what he said. You lie. We're not lying, doctor. We're not making things up out of thin air. We are taking this person's statement that they made. We are breaking it down. We're looking at it with a critical eye. We are allowed to do that. Freedom of speech. I mean, I know you don't believe that autistics are human and therefore don't believe that we have a right to freedom of speech, but I'm afraid our country's federal laws just don't agree with you. Okay? Also, let me bring you back to the point, doctor, that you know the whole you can convince someone that you have the right to abuse us, okay? Most of us have been through it at some point. Most of us at some point in our lives thought so lowly of ourselves that we thought that every horrible thing that had been done and perpetuated upon us was what we deserved because of how we were born, because we aren't normal, because we're never going to be normal. Okay? This is not new. It's something many victims of abuse have gone through. Doesn't make it true, though. Okay? But it saved them. It did. Let's continue. An accurate account of the February 16th, 2006 testimonial statement of Chris Adoneto, as it's always appeared on the JRC website, is as follows. The words that were taken out of context by the MDRI authors and inappropriate use to create statements the students never made, shown in bold font. No, doctor, I'm calling you out. Nowhere in the MDRI report do they state that what they are reporting from what this student said was in any way, shape, or form their exact words. That's nitpicking. Nor were they in any way placed in a way to be deceptive because we want people to look negatively at the poor, misunderstood martyr JRC. Okay? You are literally arguing over semantics, over wording. And the reason why you do so is because you would know, even taken in the original context, it sounds bad because, again, it's bad. It's really that simple, folks. So, what are we getting from this particular one, shall we? People like Dr. Matthew Israel, like AH, will argue semantics. They do so because it's literally all they have. And they will try to use it in order to convince others that they are being misunderstood and attacked for no reason. This is regardless of the fact that we have mountains of evidence, literally over 3 decades of evidence against this man. And he still, to this day, has not been able to provide any coherent, real answer to it. Let's close on that. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. And as always, we here at Spilling Tea do hope you have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone. Seriously.